Okay, here we go. If you had to symbolize time, what shape would you use? So, a common shape that occurs to people is a circle. And the reason that is the kind of the common shape, well, it's intuitive because basically your life feels like a circle, a cycle. You wake up, you have your coffee, you work out, you have breakfast, you go to work, you take a break, you go back to work, you take another break, you go back to work, you hang out with a friend, you go home, you shower, you go to sleep, you rinse and you repeat, right? That is life. Life seems like a circle, especially if you live here in New York. It just seems like we're all cogs in the machine, and every cog is just spinning around and around and around and around. It's going to get more positive, okay? I don't mean to depress you, okay? And of course, we symbolize that. We put these circles, we put it on our walls, and around it goes, around the hand goes. Time is passing, time is passing. And of course, this is not a new thing. In ancient times, this was a sundial. And the sundial was made as a circle, and that's not an accident, of course, because, of course, the earth is a circle, a sphere, really, and as the earth rotates, of course, we feel the passage of time, we perceive that the sun is moving, the moon is moving as well, and of course, we're also going around the sun, so we perceive even the stars are going in a circle. Everything seems to be going in a circle. It seems like we can't escape the sense of time as a circle. In fact, the ancient Mesopotamians, they actually conceived of time as a circle. And it makes sense. You can't blame them. They thought of time as a serpent that was eating its own tail. And of course, there's something depressing about that because it just seems like you just go around and around and around, and we're not really going anywhere, but that was the ancient world. And, modern science doesn't really help because we understand that the world is full of circles or ellipses or whatever, but you're going around and around and around. Of course, there's another way to conceive of time, and that is not a circle, which is like this, and we would picture the calendar just kind of going around and around and around, but something else, and we're going to get to that in a second. But of course, if you picture the Jewish calendar in this way, so it's very nice, and we go through the motions, we eat our matzah, we stay up all night, we learn some Torah, etc., etc. We're going to talk about the holidays in a few minutes, but of course, you can't help but have that kind of New Year's feeling. That New Year's feeling, you're waiting, you're counting down, you're stuffed in like an animal pen in Times Square, if you've ever done that. Raise your hand if you've ever done that. You ever done that? Okay, me neither, okay, don't do that, right? But you're stuffed in that animal pen, and you're waiting for the ball to drop, and you're hoping maybe this year something is going to change when the ball drops. But of course we know that nothing changes, because if your conception of time is just moving around and around and around and around, why would you expect something to change? The cycle continues around and around and around. So that vision of time is absolutely depressing. It is kind of a geometric conception of depression itself. So we're not satisfied with that. So there's another conception of time, which is time as a line, as in a time line, right? And there you have it. You have these holidays, they're one after the other, and it's very nice, it's very useful. But of course, this conception of time makes time feel like you're on a river. You're on a river and you're just kind of paddling down the river. Sometimes you feel like you're standing in the river and you're passing the time. You have your favorite pastime, right? Just killing time, right? We're not really going anywhere. We're just letting the time just flow by. And that, of course, doesn't really help our search for what is time. The Jewish conception of time, we're not going to get to the final version of it just yet, but it certainly is not either of these. If anything, it's an arrow. And the reason it's an arrow is because arrows are pointing somewhere. And of course, where do we see in Judaism that the arrow is pointing somewhere, the arrow of time? When do we see in Judaism that there's this sense of arrival, that we've been preparing, and then we arrive? Of course, it is Shabbat. Shabbat, this concept, because nature is spinning us in circles and we get dizzy and we get hypnotized by this circle of time, so to wake us up, Judaism has a holiday. God gave us a holiday. It happens every week. And because it happens every week, you may not think of it as a holiday, but it's a holiday. It is the mother of all holidays, and it's called Shabbat. And the essence of Shabbat is that all week you work, And on Shabbat, you enjoy what you work. It is what gives you a sense of purpose in life. That yes, there's cycles, but we're going somewhere. We're trying to create a beautiful, meaningful, good life for ourselves. And that is a concept that's so ethereal that if we don't do it every week, we're going to miss it. And all of life depends on it. So Shabbat is the first holiday we're going to speak about. It is, again, the mother of all holidays. So, of course, here we have it. We have a circle, which nature seems to tell us life is a circle. We have a line. We hope life has a purpose. Judaism tells us life has a purpose. So what happens when you put these two things together? What do you get? Of course, you get a spiral. A spiral. A spiral is the love child of a circle and a line, right? Because, of course, there is a cycle. There is patterns in time. But we're moving somewhere, hopefully this Rosh Hashanah doesn't feel like that last Rosh Hashanah. Or New Year's for that matter. Hopefully you get to New Year's, you feel like you've advanced in life, not just in your career, but you've advanced as a human. You're better this year than you were last year, and this is the most accurate map of the Jewish conception of time. And of course what's very cool about it is that when you get to the holidays, so you go around the whole year, but and you're back at Passover, and in a certain sense, it's the same as last year, but of course you feel like you've moved forward spiritually. So it's the same, but it's different. Or as we say the blessing, Shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu. We thank God for giving us life, for sustaining us, and for making us arrive lazman hazeh, to this time. We've arrived at the same time, but we're different. We've moved. We've arrived. And another way to think about this, if you kind of picture the Jewish month of the year, there's 12, sometimes 13, that's a story for another time. And each one of these months produces a kind of energy. And when you get to that time of year, you feel that energy. And the energy of this time of year, we're over here in Elul, about to get to moving towards Tishrei. There's a certain energy in the air. 'Tis the season, as they say, right? But every time has its own season. Every season has its own energy. And right now there's an energy of trying to wake up from our slumber and become aware and become of what do we want out of life and who do we want to be. That's the energy in the air right now. And if you're aware of Jewish time, you can tap into that. So what I want us to do together is I want us to tell the story of that spiral, because it should kind of define the story of our year. And it's not a story that ends, of course. It's a story that when we go around again, we start the story again. But the story is so deep, it's so to the heart of what life is about, that it's a story, it's a plot that can continue over the course of life. Okay, so here we go. In approximately 10 minutes, we're going to go through the entire Jewish year. Again, I apologize, but I don't really mean it. You will have questions. I will not answer all of them in the course of 10 minutes. I'm sorry, okay? But I just won't, okay? But if you remember them, we will try to answer them in the 10 minutes after the talk. Okay, here we go. What is the first holiday of the Jewish year? Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year, New Year, right? Wrong. The first holiday according to the Torah, of course, as we said, is Shabbat. That Shabbat exists outside of all the holiday cycles. It's like at the center of the holiday cycle. If you're interested, shameless plug for my friend's calendar. My friend makes a circular calendar so that you can see how every day of your week, you count the days not in a grid, but you count inwards towards Shabbat. It's very cool, circlecalendar.com. Check it out. Shabbat at the center, okay? But anyways, here we go. Shabbat's at the center. Shabbat's like the primordial mother of all holidays. But in the year, the first holiday is not Rosh Hashanah. That is the wrong answer. Okay, so if you ever want to feel Jewishly smart, and pretentious, you ask someone what's the first holiday of the year in the Jewish year, they're going to say Rosh Hashanah almost for sure, and then you're going to go, wrong, right? But don't do that because it's not nice, right? The first holiday of the year is Passover. The Torah says that on the 15th day of the first month of the year, you celebrate Passover. Passover celebrates the origin of our people. It makes sense that of the Jewish holidays, the first holiday is the holiday in which we became Jews, and that is Passover. Of course, we eat matzah. Of course, we tell the story of leaving Egypt, and of course, it's not ancient history. It's the story of Jewish identity. It's the story of having freedom to be able to determine who you are, where are you going, who are your people, what are you about, on the national level. What are your values? That is what Passover is about. And Passover is actually the beginning of one of the 3 holiday cycles we're going to be speaking about. We're going to be speaking about 3 holiday cycles. The first one is the national holiday cycle. It's going to consist of Passover, we're going to see Shavuot, and we're going to see on the other side of the calendar, exactly on the other side, the holiday of, one of the least known of the 3, or second to least known, Sukkot. Shavuot is probably the least known of the 3. But Passover is celebrating our freedom. And then we have Shavuot, which celebrates receiving the Torah. So if Passover is our freedom as a nation, and our freedom from being inside of a culture in which we don't know who we are, because we're just white people, right? We don't know who we are. We're white like everybody else. And Passover is the freedom from that. We're someone, right? As a black female minister, head of school, told my friend who was the only white administrator in the school. She said, "Stop saying you're white. You're Jewish," right? It took a black female minister, superintendent, head of school, whatever, to tell this guy that he's a Jew. And that celebration of identity is here. But then, what does it mean to be a Jew? Where am I going? That is a celebration of Shavuot. Shavuot is a celebration of the Torah. The Torah says, what do you do with that freedom? How do you use your freedom to lead a meaningful, moral life? That is Shavuot. There is a period of time between Passover and Shavuot in which we count the days, and that is the counting of the Omer, in which we count 50 days, but between you and me, it's really 49, okay? Long story, but basically, we count the days and we count up, because it should be a process of building from our freedom to how we're going to use that freedom on Shavuot. And then we have over here Sukkot, which is puzzling because Sukkot is literally on the exact opposite. It couldn't be any further from Passover. If it was any later, it would be closer on this side. If it was any earlier, it'd be closer on this side. It's literally as far as it can be. And of course, what are we celebrating on Sukkot? The fact that we left Egypt in Sukkot, right? Sukkot is either the fact that we are surrounded by these miraculous clouds. I mean, think about it. 2 million Jews, men, women, and children survived for 40 years. You can't survive in the desert. A Jew can't survive in the desert for an hour and a half. I mean, go on a birthright trip, right? And here we are, for 40 years we survived, men, women, children. We were surrounded by God's glory and protected. And that's what we celebrate over here. But of course, that doesn't make any sense. Why does that not make any sense? Because didn't we leave Egypt over here? So why are we celebrating the fact that we left Egypt in Sukkot, protected by these clouds, over here? The concept is, and there's again a lot more to this, but the concept is like this. Passover celebrates our national leaving, the beginning of our identity. Shavuot represents, again, the direction we're heading, the values, the wisdom that guides us. Sukkot represents that most of Jewish history, 99.999% of Jewish history, is on the journey, is on the path. We haven't arrived yet. But even when we're on the path, that is also meaningful. God is also there. He's not just there at the epic moments at the beginning and the epic moment we get the Torah. He's there even as far away as you get from that epic beginning. He's there with us, protecting us on the way. And that's why, hopefully, we are going to be building a sukkah down the street over here in just a few weeks. It's going to be a rickety structure, and we're going to sit in that rickety structure. It's going to be a temporary structure, and we're going to be celebrating together as the Jewish people on the way. We haven't made it yet. The Jewish people still has the home stretch to go, but God is with us. God is protecting us against all odds, and that is the celebration of Sukkot. So we have Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot, 1, 2, and 3, and these are the Shalosh Regalim, which literally means the 3 legs. They're the legs with which the Jewish nation walks through time, from beginning, middle, and end. Beginning, kind of the directionality, and then the middle, which is on the way to the end, right? That's better put. And these are the Shalosh Regalim. They're actually literally called Regalim because Jews would walk on foot to Jerusalem. There'd be a pilgrimage holiday, and these are the 3 pilgrimage holidays. If you want to experience this, I recommend you go to Jerusalem during one of these holidays, and you will actually see, it's not technically the pilgrimage, but you will experience Jews from all over coming together. It's an awesome, awesome sight. Shavuot, it actually happens at dawn, so you get there at when it's dark, and as the sun rises over the Mount of Olives, you see the Kotel Plaza filled with Jews. Unbelievable. Then the next holiday cycle is what's called the Teshuvah cycle. It's more personal, it's more private, it's your own cycle of growth and development. It's where we're heading right now. Of course, first you have Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah, you may not know this, but it's actually the day of judgment. It's like your yearly review. Everyone needs a yearly review. If no one's, you know that the people who report being most upset at work are the people who have bosses who don't pay attention to what they do, not the people who have overbearing bosses, interestingly enough. Your yearly review is good. It makes you realize that you have a standard to live up to. It's a good thing. That's Rosh Hashanah. And we go through that yearly review on Rosh Hashanah, which hopefully wakes us up with the sound of the shofar. It wakes us up to who we're capable of being. It shakes us out of our slumber and says, you're going to have an amazing year, God willing. As we say, Shana Tova U'Betuka, have a good and sweet year. Then we have Yom Kippur, which is 10 days after Rosh Hashanah, including those first 2 days. It's the 10th day, with Rosh Hashanah being the first and second. Yom Kippur is actually a day of total love. It's realizing that even though you had a yearly review, and maybe it was a scathing review, but God loves you. He wants you to succeed. He's not out to get you. And Yom Kippur is that day of turning inwards and becoming the best version of ourselves, and that's the beauty of Yom Kippur. Sukkot, believe it or not, is the third holiday of this cycle, which makes Sukkot a double holiday. Yeah, it's a double holiday. Sukkot is a holiday both in the cycle of the 3 pilgrimage holidays. It's also the third celebratory holiday. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. God couldn't space out another holiday, put it later. Why are we having Sukkot literally 5 days after Yom Kippur? It's so jam-packed in there. But no, when we're celebrating that we're people on journey, we're celebrating that we're people who God is with us on this personal journey of Teshuvah, of becoming the people we were born to be. And then, of course, stuck in there is Simchat Torah, which is the 8th day after the beginning of Sukkot, in which we finish the entire Torah and we celebrate, we dance with the Torahs. Over here, they close the street, I think on 4th Street, I think. They close the street, many other places in the Upper West Side. There's celebrations in the street, celebrating the fact that we're a nation and we're people within that nation who are growing and becoming. And the last cycle is the rabbinic cycle, with Tisha B'Av, which is a mourning holiday where we mourn the destruction of Jerusalem and the diaspora of our people. It is a holiday in Judaism to mourn, because if you don't mourn, if you don't feel loss, so then it's sad. It's actually the most sad thing in Judaism is to be apathetic. So we actually try as hard as we can to feel the loss of something that we never experienced, to feel the loss of what it means to have a people that's united, to feel the loss of what it means to have a world that's not perfect. We have to feel that loss, and that's what Tisha B'Av is. That's in the middle of the summer. And then there's 3 weeks of mourning preparing for that. Those are called the 3 weeks. Then, of course, the other 2 rabbinic holidays are well known. We have Hanukkah over here, and we have Purim over here. Hanukkah represents the fact that it was a spiritual battle. It was a spiritual battle. The reason the rabbis had to create these holidays is because they're holidays that kind of happened in sub-ideal conditions. We were assimilating to Greek culture, and we won. It was a battle, was waged over decades, and over decades the Jewish people persevered against all the odds. We did not succumb to Hellenism, at least not completely. We're still Western Jews, but we managed to maintain those drops of pure olive oil in our soul, and that is the celebration of spiritual warfare on Hanukkah. And Purim, of course, it was the first genocide, complete and utter genocide that was decreed on the Jews by the Persian Empire, led by Haman. So it was a bodily battle, and because it was that bodily battle, we celebrate now with our bodies. We become drunk, our minds, we blast our minds out, and we just celebrate because we're alive. It's just a celebration of simply being alive. Even if you're drunk, and even if you're not thinking, you celebrate being alive. And of course, that's the end of the holiday cycle. It's really the end of the whole year. It's really, Purim is the holiday that represents the holiday that we will keep in the future. Because in the future, when all this crazy mess called human history, called 2019, that's going on in the world, when it all works out, it's going to be like we were drunk. We won't know what was going on. People don't know it. They try to control things. We try to plan. We don't know what's going on. And that's the truth that Judaism reveals that really there is a conductor to the symphony, there is a conductor to the chaos, and that's what we celebrate over here at Purim, and then we're able to go back and make Seder and make order and create the Jewish nation within that chaos, and that's the beginning of Passover. Hopefully you found this helpful. Hopefully you found your way to orient yourself in the map of the Jewish year, and if you have any questions, I'll take them now for the next 10 minutes. Any questions? Yeah, Nicole. I knew I could count on you.
Why? I don't understand why, like, there couldn't have been a choice between Tishrei and Nisan. Like, why are there two starts different?
Okay, so Nicole is clearly a graduate student in a survey undergraduate course over here. Let's catch up to Nicole. Nicole is telling us that there is a debate. There's a debate in the Talmud over when was the world created. Was the world created in the month of Nisan, where Passover happened, or was the world created in Tishrei, in the month where Rosh Hashanah happens, right? That's the debate Nicole is telling us about. So what's your question?
Why not, like, why couldn't there be one? Why is there, it seems just like a lack of choice.
Seems like a lot. Why can't there be one? Like, why are Jews debating?
I don't, like, why, like, the Jewish New Year starts in a few weeks, but the first month is not actually until Nisan.
So it's very interesting. The first month in the Torah is called this. This is called the first month. The word New Year's doesn't appear explicitly in the Torah, but we have a tradition that it is Rosh Hashanah. That's our oral tradition. So the question is, which one takes priority? Is it when the world was created, so to speak, physically, right? The Jewish people physically became a people in this month? Or is it when the world was created spiritually, which is really over here when our tradition is that Adam was born, Adam and Eve were created on Rosh Hashanah. So the birth of humanity, that kind of conceptual beginning of humanity, is over here. So that tension exists in the Torah itself, and the question is, which one do we relate to as the primary? Do we relate to the creation of humankind, the conceptual creation of humanity, or do we relate to the physical kind of meat and potatoes creation of the Jewish people, that like, here we are, we're here, we're Jews? That didn't happen until this time of year. I know that scratches the surface, but yeah.
Can you explain the significance between the three different dimensions? There's the national drama that starts Passover, the three pilgrimage festivals, and then there's a different dimension of what you said is one's own personal journey, and then there's a third dimension, which is the rabbinic addition. Can you elaborate on those three different dimensions?
Yeah, I tried to do it, but I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do a better job. Okay. So the national cycle are the three pilgrimage holidays. These are the holidays that there's an obligation on all Jewish males to come to Jerusalem. For Passover, really females have to come as well. They have to eat from the Pesach sacrifice. But basically, this national pilgrimage, the best ever music festival ever. Okay? National. People would leave their homes, they'd leave their farms. They would do it 3 times a year. It was just like a crazy, unbelievable thing. Can you imagine? I mean, it's just unreal to think of Jews going to Jerusalem to charge up for a week over here, a day over here, and a week over here by Sukkot. It's just unbelievable to think about. That is the national cycle, because we don't exist in a vacuum. We exist as part of a people. There's no such thing as a person who exists on their own. We exist as part of a people. Over here, this cycle, this much shorter cycle called the Teshuvah cycle, we're all together in that we're all trying to change. We're all trying to become the people we're born to be. But what I'm working on this year, and what Rabbi Lynn's working on this year, and what any of you are working on this year are different, and that's okay. It has to be different. I can't tell you because I'm working on X or Y, I can tell you should work on X or Y too, because I'm working on it. It doesn't work that way. Everyone has their own private relationship with God, and in that relationship to God, you're trying to become a better person. So we're all doing it together, but we're all doing it on our own, and it can only be that way. That cycle is over here, where we as individuals are growing as individuals together, and so there's that interlocking, because any nation of people has to be made up of individuals, right? We're more used to secular national holidays, but this is an amazing Jewish insight that there's a national holiday of individuals, which is a really cool concept that all the individuals, like a flash mob of people checking out who they are and trying to figure out who they're trying to be, we're all doing it together, that's over here. The rabbinic cycle, the rabbinic law is always when there's failings in the world. So the Torah, God gave us the Torah works if the world is functioning properly. But when the world is functioning improperly, so then the rabbis have to come and they have to make fences, they have to make certain scaffolding to protect us from certain problems. Like, I believe in the 1980s, there were 6 deaths due to poison that was put in medicine bottles. 6 deaths in the United States, and that was it. It was judged by the Food and Drug Administration that 6 deaths in 1 year is too much, and they mandated that all medicine comes with safety foils, right, and safety tops, so that wouldn't happen, right? So because the world doesn't function as it should, so then there's a mandated protection. And that's his idea. Obviously, the destruction of the temple is the world not functioning properly. We have to mourn the loss. If we wouldn't have led to the loss, we wouldn't have to mourn it. Hanukkah is the fact that the Jewish people started to assimilate, and because we started to assimilate, then there was a battle, there was a civil war. Hanukkah was actually a civil war between those who were assimilating and those who wanted to stay Jewish. And that ultimately was a good thing because it was a war for our identity. It was a battle for our soul. And that's what Hanukkah is. And Purim, of course, we were very distant. We gave up hope of ever going back to Israel in Persia, in modern-day Iran. And because of that, that's why there was an edict out for our death. And of course, Jews, unfortunately, we do best in emergencies. Okay? We just do. If you look at Israel, they can fight all they want. God forbid, but when emergency happens, we come together. We do really well in emergencies, right? It's just that's like a really bad dynamic to have, but it's just the truth. Purim is that emergency. It's the fact that things were subpar, and because things were subpar, we rose a challenge. We want to celebrate that. We want to celebrate even the sub-ideal situations. Those are the rabbinic holidays. Okay, 3 more minutes? Yeah.
Sure. Relationships between the events of the year and the energies of the time of the year.
Yeah.
So like you said, you're explaining how like because of certain human events that happened during history, at certain times of the year, we dedicate, I guess, or you're describing the energy that happens during that time of the year.
Yeah.
So was that particular kind of energy present before the events, or was it because of the human events like Tisha B'Av and the destruction of the temple, which we then look back in retrospect and see that that energy is during that time of the year.
Okay, great question. If you didn't hear Shua's question, Shua, right? Shui's question is, if there's really an energy to time, so leaving Egypt happened at a certain time. It happened 3,330.
I think it's 1312 BCE.
Right, so 1312 BCE, okay? So you do the math, okay? But it happened at a certain period of time, okay? So Shui's great question is, if you're saying there's some sort of metaphysical energy, so that metaphysical energy should be there before the event happened. That is exactly correct, which is why if you look in Bereshit, you can actually map out the events that happened on Passover itself. So for example, if you look at when Isaac was born, it actually works out that Isaac was actually born on Passover, and if you can do that backwards because you know that he was born a year after the arrival of the angels. You know that the angels came to visit Abraham, and that same day they went to visit Lot. When they go to visit Lot, they are served matzahs. Very strange, totally anachronistic, but they are served matzahs. Don't take my word for it. It's an open book. It's very widely distributed, right? I'm sure you can find it. Google Torah, okay? And you will find that Lot served them matzah. So there's a concept that energy existed even before, and of course it goes beyond even before that event. Those are just clues that there's something pulsing in time that we tapped into. And of course we continue to tap into it today, and that's the idea. The idea is the more you learn about what's happening in time, the better you can use time as an opportunity, which is ultimately what time is. Time is called zman. If you want to invite someone to a function, you call that a hazmana. Hazmana is an invitation. Time is an invitation. We have to know what it's inviting us to. But if we know what it's inviting us to, then God willing, we can arrive and we can say, Shechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu l'zman hazeh. That we're grateful for giving us life, for sustaining us, and for allowing us to arrive at this time. Thank you for your attention. We're not